Hi, it's Catherine, and I am back today with another fall food review. So today I've chosen a classic fall recipe, and that is chili. So this recipe is actually a 21-day fix sweet potato and black bean chili, but I assure you it's great for any program that you may be doing right now. So let's go ahead and watch the video to see how I made it, and then I'll be back with my review. All right, so now you've seen the video, and I'd love to share my review with you. I like to review 4 elements of any recipe that I try, and those elements are ease, the ease with which the recipe can be made, the time, how long it takes, how healthy the recipe is, and then of course the most important one at the end is taste. So let's go ahead and get started with a quick synopsis of how this recipe works, and then I'll go ahead and share my ratings for those areas. So this recipe can be done on the stovetop. It can also be done using an Instant Pot. So those are the 2 main ways that this recipe is made. The recipe has olive oil and ground turkey, onion, garlic, black beans, fire roasted tomatoes, kale, sweet potatoes, chicken stock, salt-free taco seasoning, chili powder, and a couple of other seasonings. And it's created much like other chilies that you would make, with just a few exceptions that I'll go over. And so let's go ahead and get started with the first category, which is ease. So this recipe, like I said, could be created in an Instant Pot. And I don't have an Instant Pot, so I created it on the stovetop. And it wasn't challenging. If you've made chili before, the process was very similar. But it would have been probably easier and definitely faster if I had an Instant Pot. And so it's one of those things that requires extra tools if you want to make it a little bit easier for yourself. The second area that I want to talk about in terms of the ease is this one part of the chili recipe asks you to use an immersion blender, which, if you aren't familiar, it's a type of blender that basically looks like a long rod, and you can stick it into a pot or anything else, bowl, anything else, and you can blend directly in something, especially something that's hot. And again, that was something that we don't have. And so for that step, I had to take the hot, liquid, and solid ingredients and put them into a blender, which again wasn't a problem, but would have been easier had I had an immersion blender. So in this recipe, if you have those items, if you have an immersion blender, and if you have an Instant Pot, then this recipe is going to be a lot quicker. And for me, the recipe took a little bit longer because I didn't have those tools. I will say when I get into time, I'll talk about the time that it took to make this particular recipe, which was a little bit different than other chilies I've made. But finishing up with the ease, I would rate this a 2 for ease, just because you're either going to have to get out some of those larger kitchen items to use while you're cooking, or you're going to end up with some extra things along the way that you have to take out and use. So your kitchen may end up a little bit messier than usual, which is always a little bit more challenging. So I give that one a 2. Okay, in terms of time, This was very interesting. So it was a very busy recipe, which I was surprised about. Chilies that I've made in the past in a crock pot are not at all busy. It's like you do a little bit of chopping, a little bit of rinsing, throw everything in, and then you let it sit for a long time. And I found that I was working throughout this entire recipe. I didn't have a lot of times for breaks. But that being said, it took a lot less time than most chili recipes. So I was done from start to finish. I was done in under an hour, which I'm not used to with chili. I'm used to kind of that set it and forget it chili where you wait for 8 hours in the crock pot before serving. So this was nice if you have an hour and you have an hour you can devote to cooking where you're not distracted by the other things you need to be doing, or where you have the opportunity to focus on just the recipe. Then we made a double recipe in under an hour and we had chili for a week and a half. So in that sense, I would say that for time, I would also rate it a 2 because it doesn't give you as much opportunity to multitask, which I know we all need, but it was a lot quicker to make and the flavor was not diminished because we made it quickly. So that would be a 2. In terms of how healthy this chili recipe is, you heard the ingredients. This is an incredibly healthy chili recipe. I've never made chili with kale before, and it was phenomenal. The taste was amazing. And we also have sweet potatoes, which oftentimes when I've made chili, I've used other types of potatoes. And so I was really excited to try sweet potatoes in the chili. So I found it to be packed with nutrients. And then the other thing that I'm so excited to share with you is that the recipe actually asks you to take a few ingredients. I think it was the fire roasted tomatoes, the chicken stock, and the sweet potatoes. And once those have all cooked together for about 10 or 15 minutes, that's where you use that blender. And you actually blend all of those ingredients together. So it does 2 things. One, it adds this incredible thickness to your chili. That's the thickness you normally get from slow cooking it for 8 hours. But you don't have to do that because you've created it by blending these rich ingredients together. And then secondly, for the people in your household who don't like sweet potatoes, you're blending those so there aren't chunks of sweet potato for them to try. And quite honestly, in our household, I love sweet potatoes. He doesn't like them. Neither of us could taste them. So I thought that was an amazing way to add a great nutrient to your kids' diet, to your husband's diet, to your diet, in a way that was not in your face. And so for healthy, I would absolutely rate this a 3. I thought it was an amazing recipe for health reasons. And then the final area is taste. And you can probably tell that I loved this recipe because I'm getting super excited just talking about it. So we loved this recipe the night that we made it. And then we had it every couple of days for about 10 days. And we found that it was delicious served fresh. It was amazing served leftover the next day. And it warmed up from the freezer just like that first day. So we didn't feel that we lost any flavor when we kept it for that 10-day period of time, both refrigerated at first and then in the freezer. So I thought that for a fall recipe that you could make relatively quickly, it had the most amazing flavor. And so I would absolutely rate that taste a 3. Yeah, absolutely rate that a 3. No questions asked. So overall, I think this is an amazing recipe. I think it's a recipe that is also nice because you can customize it to your needs and the needs of your family. So if you have a need to have, an additional carb in the chili, or you have a need to change up your protein in the chili, this is a great recipe that is easily modified to meet your needs if the ingredient list doesn't meet your needs right off the get. So I would highly recommend this. I think it's great to have around. We are going to be making this again before Thanksgiving and just freezing it in single serving containers so that as we're going through that Thanksgiving week and there are so many temptations, we have a recipe that we love that we can just pop into the microwave, heat up, and know that we're getting everything we need in that one bowl. So if you have any questions for me about this recipe, or if you decide to try it, please let me know. I will post the link to the recipe in our thread, and we'll go from there. So have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope that you're staying warm as fall is quickly turning to winter, and I'll see you next week.